Captain Peter Cutsey, Part 3 to the simulator pilot assessment. Let's look at the flap gauge and the leading edge flaps transit and leading edge flaps extend lights. Our flap for takeoff today will be at flaps 5. And once you're airborne and you begin your cleanup at 1,000 feet above the ground, you are going to call for flaps 1. Pilot monitoring will give you flaps 1. And as you approach the flaps up speed on your primary flight display speed tape, call for flaps up. Pilot monitoring will select flaps up. The observation will be the leading edge flaps transit light is on or illuminated. And when the flaps are up and the gauge indicates up, the leading edge flaps transit light is out. And the call is flaps up, light out. So basically that's it. And when calling for flap, we normally start taking our flap when we're on vectors somewhere between 12 and 15 nautical running miles to touchdown is a good tip as far as a good suggestion when you're in level flight. So for our exercise today, for the first part, for the IFR portion, when you're downwind, you'll see the runway on your left-hand side. Will be on the north side of the field for vectors. So when you're downwind, call flaps 1 and set flaps 1 speed. Pilot monitoring will do that for you. As you're turning base, call for flaps 5. And once you are at flaps 5, set flaps 5 speed. Pilot monitoring will do that from the speed tape. You'll be given an intercept heading to the localizer, and when you're approximately 30 to 45 degree intercept heading and cleared for the approach, your instructor will help you on what selections to make on the mode control panel as far as selecting approach is concerned. And what you're going to see on the FMA, we'll look at that shortly. So you intercept the localizer, and once the glide slope is alive, your call is gear down, flaps 15, speed brakes armed, set flaps 15 speed. As you intercept the glide path, call for your landing flap, which today will be flaps 30. So flaps 30, and once the flaps are selected to flaps 30, as the pilot flying, you will call set VREF +5. So that's the sequence as far as the flaps are concerned. If you have to go around, the call is go around flaps 15, positive rate on the barometric altimeter, gear up. Let's now go and have a look at the gear handle. Or I should say the landing gear lever. So once you're airborne and you have a positive rate call from the pilot monitoring on the barometric altimeter, you'll call for gear up. Pilot monitoring will pull the lever out, raise it all the way to the up position. There is an off position, don't stop there. So out all the way to up and then in. And once the gear is up and all lights are out, and at a convenient time during the after takeoff procedure, the pilot monitoring will put the landing gear lever off. And if you're cleaned up, of course, the pilot flying will call for the after takeoff checklist, and that is read from the control column. So that is a review of the gear and flaps. Next is a review some things we've talked about already, but let's go through them again. Here on the glare shield, you have the captain's EFIS panel, which is the pilot monitoring for this assessment, pilot flying's EFIS panel, and in the center you have the MCP, mode control panel. Let's look at the EFIS panel once more. Your minimums for the Category 1 approach will be a barometric setting, so the minimum selector is already at baro, and you would set the minimums here. I've already done that just for this example, so that 255 is the minimum for a Class C aircraft, which we are, for a Category 1 approach to the ILS to runway 08 left at Muscat. We have identical EFIS panels. Pilot flying, you may make selections on the EFIS panel yourself if you feel comfortable, but generally, as a rule, pilot flying does not touch anything except thrust lever, trim switches, and control column, of course, and ask for everything else. The pilot monitoring will set up what you want on his side or on your side. VOR needles, will show you those later, how you can actually view them in the center mode, this mode here, and which brings up something that we looked at before. And in that mode, you actually will have needles here when you do have a VOR tuned. And the number 1 VOR is a single pointer, and the number 2 is a double pointer, and we'll show you that later. Remember, when you go to the VOR mode, if you're asked to intercept a radial, this is what you'll see. We're in the VOR center mode. And if you notice, we have a message that says EFIS mode nav frequency disagree. So EFIS mode, the mode we selected, and the frequency don't agree, meaning we have selected VOR on the EFIS mode. And on the nav control panel on the center pedestal, we don't have a VOR frequency in the active. Here's a VOR frequency over here for Muscat VOR. You dial it here, which we have, and then you move it over to the active side with the transfer switch. This is where you want it. So now 114.5 Muscat is active, and we want to make sure that we've done the same on the number 2. Now you have the VOR needles, and you don't have the message because the selection on the MCP and the frequency match. Likewise, if you select the approach mode, which is, remember, that's the 3rd selection we're going to be using today, you again get EFIS mode nav frequency disagree, because you have a VOR frequency here, but you've selected approach on the mode selector. The ILS for runway 08 left, 1089, you dial it here and you select it here. Anytime you change number 1 ILS, you also make the change on number 2 ILS. We dial it and we transfer it. So now we have the number 1 and number 2 ILSs tuned to the ILS for runway 08 left. There you go, no message, meaning that we are in agreement on the mode control panel with the frequency tune. So remember, during your assessment, you're going to be using 3 of the 4 modes on the mode control panel. The map, which is the normal mode that you're going to be using, and we'll go back to that now. Here's the map mode. There's Murma, 14 miles away from our position on the runway. You'll be in that mode until you have to change the mode. You will have to change the mode if you are asked to intercept a VOR radio. Then you will ask the pilot monitoring to select VOR on both EFIS panels and also select the course that you're supposed to intercept, and then you will have the correct picture. All right, that is part 3. We have one more part coming, part 4, where we'll discuss the second part of your assessment, which will be a visual circuit. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your simulator assessment.